Hey everyone, it's Rob Van Dyson again. Today is June 14th, 2020. I'm back up here at Hobble Creek, mostly just because that's where I like to record these videos. I just find it really nice. Anyways, today I was listening to a podcast on writing. As I've mentioned in one of my previous videos, I decided that I want to get back into my writing. And so my computer should get back from the repair shop tomorrow, if all things go well. And I've been trying to kind of gear up to get back into writing. Yeah, I could write on other things, but I just really prefer writing on a laptop, so I've been kind of waiting for that. But while I've been waiting for that, I can also do things like listening to writing podcasts, take writing courses on things like Skillshare, and things of that nature. Anyways, this podcast was Writing Excuses, and they had a person on who does television writing, and they were talking about serialization, and they were talking about the difference, at least in her mind, about serialization versus I don't think this is the right word, or it is the right word, an epic. You're writing an epic. And as she was talking about it, you'll have a serialization is very character-based. You're following their story arc. You're following their progression. Whereas with an epic, it tends to be more of the main character or main characters don't have much of a character arc, a development. For those of you who are a little bit unaware, real quick, down and dirty, a character arc is how a character progresses, how they mature, how the things that they go through changes them. Where with an epic, the characters themselves don't change a lot. The side characters, the characters that are there for one season or for one episode, they might change. They might change a lot. They might learn a lot. They might have a very big character arc, but the character themselves tend to remain the same. And it kind of got me thinking about a television series that I watch. And I don't watch a lot of television, especially not, dramas or procedurals or things like that. But there was one series that I watched start to finish that overall I really enjoyed it. And it was Rebels, based off of, set in the Star Wars universe. I'm a pretty decent Star Wars fan, and essentially the main character, Ezra Bridger, discovers that he actually has Force powers. For those of you unfamiliar, I can't seem to speak today, I'm sorry, with the Star Wars universe, basically they're the wizards in a lot of ways. They're oftentimes referred to as space wizards. And Ezra Bridger, for me, was a very frustrating character, because he would seem to have a character arc. He'd seem to be progressing and becoming more mature. And this would go on for for one episode, maybe a couple. And it seems like he was learning. But then, in the next episode, he'd go back and make the exact same type of mistakes. Different form, but essentially the same mistakes. Again, he would go off and do something very rash. And something, he would do something that in, season 3 that he would have done in season 1. And I found him to be a very frustrating character. On the other hand, some of the other characters like Kanan Jarrus, Hera Syndulla, Sabine Wren, to a lesser extent, Zed, actually had more character arcs. They changed. They had to deal with things. I'm not going to get into spoilers here, but for those of you who are familiar with the series, you can kind of see where I'm talking about. Kanan Jarrus, I think, had the biggest character arc, and I actually honestly found him the most interesting character. I also love Sabine Wren. Some people will say just as because she's a Mandalorian, and Mandalorians are cooler than Jedi, in my opinion. I know that if this ever gets any serious views, I'll probably get a lot of hate for that statement. But I do. I find the Mandalorians, under Dave Filoni, the executive producer, a lot more interesting than I did the Jedi. And it kind of got me thinking, is if someone were to, create a TV series or write a book based off of our lives, what characters would we be? Would we be the serialized characters who grow, who progress, who make changes, or are we making the same mistakes, the same type of mistakes this year that we made last year, that we made 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And it got me kind of thinking about my life. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of cases, I'd be more of, the epic protagonist. I've made a lot of the same mistakes over and over. Fortunately, I do believe, especially with certain aspects of my life, that I actually have improved. And my character arc is there. There are certain things that I've learned, that I've implemented in my life now that, I was, for lack of a better purpose, opposed to 5 years ago, 7 years ago. My wife has helped me with a lot of that. And as I've been thinking about this, it's like, okay, you know what? If I were to look back at my life, okay, I can see where in some areas I'd be more of the epic, I reset, I make the same mistakes. And I would be the Ezra Bridger. Just, I don't learn, I don't change. And that's for a variety of reasons. One of them, I think, is I was raised a certain way to believe a certain thing. And in that particular field that I'm talking about, there was a lot of expectations, You were expected to do one thing at this age. You were expected to do another thing at this age. You were expected to get this type of a marriage and that kind of stuff. And as I look back at some of these things, I have, either done them out of expectations. I felt a certain way, or I felt that I should feel a certain way because of my upbringing. And I'm now having to take a look back and say, okay, well, I wanted to do this certain thing a certain way because You know, I was always taught that's how you're supposed to do it. You know, and you know, but my actions haven't always matched my belief system in this particular field. And you know, I have actually kind of reached the point where instead of just trying to get through and deal with things, where I'm actually starting to analyze and to think about, why am I doing certain things? Why am I not doing certain things that, I think that I should? And I think I am actually reaching a point in my story where I'm going to have to make some decisions. I don't know which way I'm going to come down, honestly. And coming up here and doing certain things, does kind of allow me to think about it in a less noisy, less interrupted form. I'm up here, my wife is back at home, and while I'm in the middle of thinking about this, she's not going to come in and ask me about the dishes or, what we should do this next weekend or etc. And it does give me some time to reflect and to think. My boss isn't going to come up and ask me to do something. But I guess my main point is, what kind of character are you? And is that the type of character you want to be? Do you want to be the epic hero, the Mad Max, the Conan the Barbarian, who doesn't change very much, the ever-bridger? And while there are definite benefits to that, everyone knows what you're going to get. If they were to create a new Mad Max or Conan the Barbarian series, you go in, first couple episodes, you're trying to figure out, okay, what have they kept? What have they changed? But you essentially have a good idea of what you're going to get. And in season 5, you still know what kind of character you're going to get. It's more of what situation is he going to find himself in? How is he going to deal with that particular situation? And even that, you kind of have a general idea of how he's going to deal with it, or her, or etc. But in a lot of ways, it's just not as satisfying. House is always going to have bad bedside manners. He's always going to, figure out what is causing the issue at the end. But you usually in these series don't get a lot of change in them. And therefore, sometimes it's kind of hard for them to progress. And so I guess my question to you is, what type of character are you? And if you're an episodic, and there are certain things there's good to be episodic on, Once you figure out your belief system, yeah, it needs to be examined every now and then. But, your core values, you shouldn't be changing, left, right, willy-nilly. On the other hand, is your belief system holding out? Is it giving you the results you want? Is it proving itself to be true? And are you continuing on just because it's easier that way, because that's the way you were raised, or are you carrying on because you still actually believe that? Because you do believe it is a valid and good and beneficial belief system. And if you find yourself, with the same problems you had 10 years ago, maybe it's time to look at that. It doesn't mean you have to change your belief system, but do you believe in that belief system more now? Has it borne fruit? Anyways, this has just been kind of a rambling, kind of a thought. Me working through the thought process while I'm talking to you all. I'm just going to go ahead and end it here. So once again, I encourage all of you to figure out what your dreams are and to constantly be working towards them. All right, Vin Dyson out.